In today's video, we're taking a look at some NHL trade and free agent rumors, looking at teams like the Predators, the Oilers, the Wild, the Coyotes, and the Bruins. Plus, we have a major update on Habs forward Brendan Gallagher and a potential suspension coming to Flyers defenseman Matt Niskanen. We'll discuss all that coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. I'm coming to you live again from Halifax, Nova Scotia. You can have a quick look here at the city behind me. Obviously, we're still on the road. Tomorrow we'll be heading home. I'm not sure if tomorrow's video is going to be recorded here in Halifax before I start the trek back home, or if it'll be recorded once I get back to the studio tomorrow evening. So either way, we'll have to wait and see. I'm not sure what tomorrow is going to bring, but I hope you've enjoyed our little series of NHL updates of videos here from the road while I've been exploring beautiful Nova Scotia. Now, getting into today's news, we got some pretty important news on Montreal Canadiens forward Brendan Gallagher. We found out today that he's gone for a CT scan and he's been diagnosed with a broken jaw after getting a cross-check to the face from Flyers defenseman Matt Niskanen. Obviously, this hit looked to be pretty severe when it first happened. Gallagher did continue playing. He had quite a game. Overall, he's certainly really tough, quite a warrior to be able to play through that. But unfortunately, he's going to have to leave the bubble, have surgery, and will be out for the remainder of this series. Of course, the Habs stayed alive in this series, making it a 3-2 series lead now for the Flyers, heading to Game 6. So obviously, Montreal is going to continue to stay alive. If they can claw their way back and get their way into the next round, then there is a chance that Gallagher could return. Obviously, we've seen players with jaw injuries before be able to wear the full shield and stuff, but obviously they need a little bit of time for their surgery and some healing to take place before that can happen. So I fully suspect that defenseman Matt Niskanen will be suspended. We're waiting for the NHL to announce their ruling. I do believe there was already a hearing that took place earlier today, but as of the recording of this video, at least they have not yet announced what the verdict is. But I do fully expect a suspension, and I'll be shocked if there isn't one, and I'm going to think it's at least a few games. I've seen comments from Flyers head coach Alain Vigneault saying it was just a hockey play with an unfortunate ending, and that's certainly not the case in my book. I think this is something that was, certainly somewhat deliberate, and yes, Gallagher's, not super tall and all that, but really at the end of the day, Niskanen, I think, knew what he was doing. Niskanen doesn't really have much of a history in the way of being suspended, so I don't think it's going to be too severe, but he's going to get at least a couple games for this, I think. Clearly pretty serious injury to Gallagher. Big blow for Montreal. Question is now, who do they put in the lineup to replace them with? They could go back to Belzile. They could go to Ryan Poehling. I'm not really sure what they do here, but obviously Kirk Muller's got some options with him still being in the coaching role, taking over for Claude Julien, who had to leave the NHL bubble due to a medical emergency of his own. So we'll see what happens here, but obviously that's bad news for the Habs moving forward. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to be taking a look at some trade and free agent talk on several NHL teams. Now, some of these free agent rumors are going to be leading likely, if they happen at least, to the NHL teams making trades to free up necessarily cash flow to make the signings. Now, the first one we want to take a look at is the possibility of the Nashville Predators going after free agent forward Mike Hoffman. Now, of course, Hoffman currently with the Florida Panthers, previously spent a big chunk of his career starting things off with the Ottawa Senators. Pretty consistent 25 to 30 goal scorer. For the most part, it's been very productive. Once he became a regular in Ottawa, he continuously improved. Has had a couple solid years now in the Panthers organization, and clearly, he's still a productive player. He's a pending unrestricted free agent. A player like himself, as well as Evgeny Dodonov in Florida, are expected to, pretty likely not to return. We've heard numerous times that the Panthers organization want to cut costs. We saw them go through some changes already at the general manager level. They're looking for a new GM, so we don't know exactly who that's going to be or what direction they're going to take the team in. Like I said, it's been reported for some time about ownership wanting to cut costs. So with cost-cutting measures, it's going to be hard to sign their own UFAs. Obviously, Hoffman's a player, as well as Dodonov, I think, who's going to garner a fair bit of attention. And, of course, as we know, GM of the Predators, David Poile, made it clear after they were eliminated from the playoffs that his team needs to be better. They clearly have struggled offensively for some time. It was a bad year offensively for them in the regular season and in their hopes here for the playoffs. And shaking things up seemed like a pretty good possibility. Now, signing a guy like Hoffman, who's been productive everywhere he's played, could be a good move. Yeah, obviously, he's got some former teammates on the Predators, and Matt Duchene and Kyle Turris. He's played with both of them before. I know the Predators are probably pretty eager to move on from Turris because that experiment hasn't worked out. But maybe if they could bring in one of his former line mates, somebody who he's had a lot of chemistry with on the ice, that very well, could kind of reignite his career too. It might be good for Turris. It could be good for Duchesne. It could be good for Hoffman to continue playing with some guys he's familiar with. And it could make a lot of sense. I mean, they have their own UFAs and guys like Granlund and Smith. And it's debatable if they return as well. I mean, they didn't have great seasons heading into their contracts expiring. Their UFA season wasn't the most productive, which is unfortunate for them. But at the same time, like I said, the Predators are going to be looking for a bit of a shakeup, and it could make a lot of sense. I've seen athletic writer Adam Vinnigan, who covers the Predators, mention this as a possible player they could target in free agency. So as we know, the Preds have a lot of guys under some pretty good contracts for the most part. They do have a couple not looking so good right now, especially paying $8 million, in my opinion, to a guy like Ryan Johansson. Johansson's a good hockey player, plays a big role for them, but at the end of the day, that contract to me is just too much money. Wouldn't be completely shocked if we saw them try to explore maybe even moving him, but it's not going to be easy either at $8 million. Obviously, the Turris contract is at $6 million. Not easy, but if they might want to give him a little bit more time before they really can push either a trade or a buyout, and bringing in a guy like Hoffman very well could make a lot of sense regardless, because I think Hoffman's played with a variety of centers, and he's been productive all around. So if things don't work out, reigniting chemistry he previously had with Duchesne or Turris, at the end of the day, he could still be a pretty key player for them, and they could still potentially move on from Turris later on if things don't turn around. But Hoffman being a free agent target to the Nashville Predators certainly does make a lot of sense to me. It'd be interesting to see what other moves they make, but instead of going after their own current free agents, they could go down that road. Instead, they don't have a ton of other guys on their own team besides Granlund and Smith that need new deals. There are a few minor ones that shouldn't be too difficult to take care of, and it could be some other measures taken on the team. I expect Poyle to be somewhat active. We know he's not afraid to make the big moves, and clearly Hoffman could be a big signing to come in and hopefully ignite that offense. Now, speaking of igniting their offense, that's something that the Arizona Coyotes failed to do in these playoffs. We saw them get beat out by the Colorado Avalanche in the last couple of games, were somewhat embarrassing with some big-time losses. They were unable to score, and they started giving up way too many goals. They just could not defend that surging Avalanche offense. And you can't help but wonder what that means for one of the top pending UFAs in the league, Taylor Hall, who, of course, they paid a lot to get back in December. Things didn't really work out all that great, really. I mean, he did okay himself individually, but the team didn't really get better after he arrived. They get into the playoffs anyway, only because of this unique format. And then, yes, they did win a round to get themselves officially into the playoffs, but when it came time to play, one of the higher-ranked teams, they get themselves absolutely obliterated. So I do expect the Coyotes to make some changes. I mean, we have Steve Sullivan now in charge after John Chayka, abruptly up and left. So obviously that kind of changed things a bit for Taylor Hall too. I mean, he's not going to want to go through another rebuild. And this Coyotes team, even though they showed they could be a playoff contender, they're nowhere near being a cup contender. And at this point, I'm not sure they're going to even have a hard time remaining to be a playoff contender because of the moves they need to make. I mean, you get some players that are pending UFAs like Soderberg and Richardson. They likely don't come back. You got some players that are entering the final year of their deals who very well could be trade targets because they're likely not going to be re-signed beyond that year. That includes Derek Stepan. That includes Alex Goligoski, Antti Ranta. I mean, they have themselves a really good goaltender in Darcy Kuemper. If he can keep that on his play level, then at least they're good between the pipes. They have Aiden Hill and other goalie prospects in the system. They should be okay in that regard. They do have a few good defensemen. They have some young forward prospects that is looking pretty decent. Hopefully Clayton Keller can carry on developing. You have a guy like Barrett Hayton who could hopefully have a bright future as well. Unfortunately, they don't have their first-round pick or their third-round pick in the 2020 draft. It's not going to be easy. The Coyotes are going to have a tough task ahead of them to move forward, and it's just not convincing to me that Taylor Hall is going to want to stay. I know he recently met with ownership that we discussed before without John Chayka. We kind of learned all more about what happened in that scenario, but clearly, I just think Hall might have played his last game in Arizona. They have a lot of moves they need to make, and they found out against Colorado, like I said, that they have a lot of missing pieces, so I'm not sure that Hall is going to want to stick around and go through yet another rebuild. So do you think Taylor Hall has played his last game as a Coyote? Will he hit free agency? And where do you see him landing this offseason? Now, as we know, the Edmonton Oilers unfortunately had an early exit to the Chicago Blackhawks in these 2020 Stanley Cup playoffs. One of their big downfalls was not getting that consistent, solid play between the pipes. And Pierre LeBrun, NHL insider for TSN and The Athletic, has revealed he feels there's a pretty good chance they could go after Robin Lehner as a free agent goaltending signing this offseason as well. I mean, obviously, there's no guarantee that he becomes a UFA. He's been getting a lot of playing time with Vegas. Obviously, they made an acquisition to acquire him before the NHL trade deadline. They're giving him an opportunity to play. And, he's playing more than Fleury is right now, and he's been playing well. They've so far qualified for round 2 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And I do think it's possible that he may not become a UFA. I do see Pierre's point that Lehner could be a terrific target for the Oilers. Obviously, we know they have tons of offense. Their D-corps made some good steps in the right direction. I think it still needs some work to get better, but they have a lot of young, bright prospects that they may not want to go out and make anything too drastic on either free agency or trading for veteran guys when you already have younger players like Nurse and Bear taking big steps to get better, and you've got guys like Broberg as well as Evan Bouchard on the way. Throw in the other guys you have there. There could be some minor changes on the back end. You could see a guy like Russell or maybe Benning not return, maybe be moved. So that's possible. But, at the end of the day, they get lots of offense. Really, that they need a save sometimes, and they just did not get that on a consistent basis. If they had a guy like Lehner between the pipes, that could have been the difference between winning and not winning that series against Chicago. I mean, how many times do we see Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl produce tons of offense only to see Chicago storm right back? And yes, there was more than two team defense than just goaltending. I do think they need more of a commitment all around from team defense, but it would be a great signing. Obviously, I think Pierre's on to something for what they need, but can they get Lehner? I mean, they're going to have to offer him up some decent term and money. He's made it clear he wants to get paid, wants to get settled, and he's earned that right after how he's played over the past couple of seasons. I would suspect Mike Smith doesn't return. Obviously, the only problem, though, is with what Leonard could make, with what you have for Koskinen for another couple of years. That ties up a lot of money in your goaltending. You've already got a lot of money tied up in your forwards. It just kind of makes it difficult to maybe round out your roster. So we might have to see some other moves from Edmonton to make that happen. But to me, it would be an investment worth making if you had to try to find a way to cut some costs elsewhere to bring in a guy like Leonard and really solidify your goaltending. Would be absolutely huge for this team to take the next steps forward to becoming a lot more legitimate shot at being a team who can go deeper into these Stanley Cup playoffs. There's also reports that the Minnesota Wild are looking to move Mats Zuccarello, who they signed not that long ago as a free agent. He did not have a great season. GM Bill Guerin's made it known here that he wants to make significant changes and has acknowledged the fact that this team needs a lot done to it to make it more competitive and to make it a more consistent playoff contender who can, have a chance to compete for the Stanley Cup. And we've already addressed Wild goaltending here in recent days because he's, we've talked about his comments in that regard. And clearly he's not happy with that. But it's also been known Zuccarello signed as a free agent and has 4 years left on his contract at $6 million per year. After another down season, the Wild seemed like they'd like to move on. But the problem is they gave him a full no trade clause. So this team, even though they do have some pieces they could move around and try to shake things up, it's not going to be easy. So Matt Zuccarello apparently is out there on the trade market, but like some of the other Wild players we've seen over the last few years, like Parise for the most part has been a name mentioned a lot. Suter to a small degree, but Suter's been, I think, a more productive, more important player. Parise, the main reason his name gets brought up a lot is because of his injuries. Now, that's been the main reason why he hasn't been more productive. But clearly, Zuccarello's 33 years old. It's going to be tough to move with all that money left on that term with a no-move clause. If he's really happy there and wants to play out that contract, they're not going to have any way to move it. But there certainly are reports out there that he's a player that they're actively trying to shop and find a new home for. Like I said, of course, they're going to have to approach him with any deal should one be able to be reached. But another name for us to keep our eye on this offseason. Now, also here, I want to touch quickly one more time on Tuukka Rask of the Boston Bruins. I saw another interview today with Bruins reporter Joe Haggerty on a TSN radio station commenting on the situation with Rask, how he's left the bubble, what's his future hold, things of that nature being discussed. And ultimately, he said he's not really sure what the future holds for Tuukka Rask because when you look at Rask compared to the other core members of the Boston Bruins team, he just doesn't feel like he's got that fire in the belly, so to speak, that desire to want to keep playing and to win a Stanley Cup, that it's not as important to him. The hockey, as much as he loves it, is not as nearly important to him as other things, of other interests and other aspects of his life. And, maybe he doesn't want to keep playing. So we've already had previous reports and rumors of retirement coming up here very soon. Of course, everything that happened here with the bubble and him leaving, I know that's not, like I said, I've been very outspoken about the fact that nobody should be giving him a hard time because of the fact of what happened here. It's been reported that his family had a medical emergency and we shouldn't give him a hard time, and that absolutely is the case. But in Haggerty's comments here, it kind of leads to the fact that the Bruins have said that they kind of need to focus on the players that are still there and obviously, trying to win with the team. And if Rask is not as committed and, they know that, then they may not want to keep him around beyond this year. I mean, hard to say. He's got 1 year left. Will he retire? I just don't see him throwing all that money away. So I don't think we'll see a retirement announcement from Rask before next season starts. But like I said, with Haggerty's comments, it just doesn't seem to be as important to him. He's got other interests, other things going on in his life, and maybe Tuukka Rask won't be playing in the NHL too much longer. But it's certainly, for somebody who's got an inside scoop here on the team and knows the players more than the average person here, it's certainly some telling tales to show that, maybe there has been more to this reports about Rask's long-term future in Boston and about his, potential retirement coming up here in the near future as well. So let us know what you think about everything discussed in today's video. Of course, as always, want to know what your thoughts are so we can talk about it further down in the comments section. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any featured content. Like I said, we'll be back to our normal studio sometime in the next day. Tomorrow's video may come from the road or it may come from home. I guess we'll have to see what happens. We'll see what the day brings, but the road trip is coming to an end. So that means also that we're going to be getting back to doing some live streaming for some of the playoff games coming up potentially as early as this weekend or into next week. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.